Alright, how's everybody doing on this beautiful Friday morning? So we are back from the boneyard. Just picked up this beam here. This is our spare front end for this bus I'm working on. I'm going to pull this down and get the leaves out of it so we can get moving on with this. Still haven't got my arms back from the machine shop yet, waiting on those. And while I'm doing that, I'm working on the rear torsion, and we're going to do a torsion adjustment back here to raise the bus back up. They had lowered the front by removing the torsion leaves, and they've re-degreed the spring plates in the back to reduce the spring pressure, so we have to re-degree that. I took the other side apart and figured I better turn the camera on. Found some bad bushings. Not a really big deal, just got to pick up a couple more parts now. We're getting our information out of the Without Guesswork book from Volkswagen. This is the pretty much only manual that I like to use. This is what we use at the shop that I worked at for 15 years. And these are from Volkswagen. You could buy these at the dealership at the time, and they came out with each model year. And if you look back here, this is the torsion bar adjustment chart. So it'll give us our spring rates, our measurements in degrees, our degrees on the inner and the outer, and then the math you can do over here. So we're going to pull it apart. First thing we're going to do is check and see what our spring plate is set at now. And we know that it's not adequate enough for the weight of the bus. So we're going to have to load it up to get a little more spring pressure here. So let me get my book out of the way. This book's very delicate. It's old. And I'd like to thank HO Motorsports and vwdarrin for providing those books for me. They were nice enough to send them to me. HO Motorsports worked with a gentleman named V.W. Rich at the dealership, and he retired last year. And he was gracious enough to pass those books down to me, and I will treasure them forever. There's a lot of good information in there, and they're hard to come by. So if you ever have a chance to pick up the Without Guesswork books, it's a really good source for some good information. Usually, you know, when somebody rewrites a manual or their interpretation of it, it changes the information. Can get a little change through translation, and that's right from the dealer, and some of the measurements and stuff in there are just invaluable. So let's go ahead and pull these off. They're going to be 15 millimeter. Break them loose real quick, and we'll ratchet them off, get the spring plate removed, and see where we're at. Normally the spring plate would be loaded up on this stop, and you can see it's not even sitting on the stop. So this is a protractor. It's a measuring device. It measures degrees, and this is a tool that you're going to be needing to do the spring plate function if you're going to re-degree your spring plates. So it looks like about 17, 18, and I just quickly glanced at the book, and they were calling for 28 to 30. So they've taken quite a bit of degrees out. Normally the spring rate or degree rate, there's a full degree on the outside spline. So if you move the spring plate one spline, it'll be 1 degree, and the finite adjustment is on the inner torsion. It breaks down to ½ degrees. So let's go ahead and pull this off. There's a cap here that retains the bushing that holds the spring plate in place. They make several different types of grommets for this operation. You can get the urethane grommets, which I don't really recommend unless you're going to do a race car, and you know you want the back of the car a little stiffer. If you don't heavily grease the urethane grommets, they can be very squeaky and noisy. I've installed lots of those over the years. my car, this is replaced on the drag car with a piece of aluminum billet with a stay-light bushing in it, and it eliminates the rubber bushing. Go ahead and pull the bushing out and show you the condition. The bushing's a little smashed. This is what you'll find under the plate. There's two of these. There's an inner and an outer, and this one's broken too on this side. We'll replace these over the year. The way the vehicle smashes these down and they get compromised. You can see the hole's not really round anymore. This alone will cause the bus to sag. They actually sit on these a little bit, although it's not the spring rate of the bus. It is the what holds the spring plate centered in the housing. So it's a good time to replace those bushings. So we already have our measurement. You know, you probably want to take that measurement and write it down on the floor somewhere. So we're going to write 18 down, just because my memory is not that good. So 18 degrees is our starting point. Just want to shake the spring plate, work it out slowly, and then you can use your thumb and remove the spring plate like such. This is the actual spring plate is what they call it, and this is where the rear suspension bolts. This is where the splines are located for the torsion bar. So let's go ahead and slide the bar out. Hold it with both hands, slide the bar out. It never amazes me how beautiful these torsion bars are when you pull them out. They're always very nice. Don't be scared to pull the bar out. You have to pretty much take the bar out of the car to get the proper adjustment here. And before we do our final adjustment, this bus is pretty level, and that's one of the things you want to do. Take a level and make sure the bus is level from side to side, and the flatter you can get the bus, the better off your measurement will be. We're dealing with degrees, so it's a fine adjustment. So we're going to go ahead and pull the other rubber bushing out, and you can see it's been worked very hard over the years. Definitely original. You can see how it's compromised up at the top here from the weight of the bus. When you unload the spring plates, this is the first thing that gets the load on it. You know, the bus starts sitting on this bushing rather than sitting on the spring. So we'll have to locate a couple of those bushings, and once we get the bushings, we'll reinstall the torsion, redegree the spring plates at about 23 degrees, or at 18 now. We'll be moving down with them, so when we pull them back up and load them onto the stop, the bus will retain the proper torsion and spring rate so it can ride on the suspension and not the stop. When you take and unload the rear suspension like this, what happens is this comes up and it sits right on that snubber. So as you're going down the road, you have the only suspension is this rubber snubber, and the only way to get a little more travel, this bus probably wouldn't even have worked. You can remove this snubber like so, and you can put a car snubber in here, and you pick up a little bit of travel, but eventually you get interference with the frame rail on the control arm, so you can only go so low doing it with degrees in the back of the spring plate. What some of the guys have come up with in the VW business, they're in business to lower these buses, or what they call boomerang plates. And what they do is they change the location of where the rear suspension bolts and move this plate up, and it lets the control arm come up, and then you retain your stock geometry on your spring rate and all that good stuff. This guy's looking for stock ride height. You know, he wants to use the bus. They camp in it. It's got a camper kit inside of it, so lowering the bus and a camper really never go together because of the extra weight. You really need the torsion to support the weight of the bus and make it drive properly. So that's where we're at. That's what's going on with that. Those bushings down now. I'll go inside and make a phone call and get those on the way, and we'll go cool off for a little bit. Like I said, just got back from getting this, and I'm going to gather to get all the tools out. We'll bust this down and pull this apart and get our torsion leaves out of the center of the beam. I have to get underneath there and pull the shift rod out to access the grub screw here down here. the shift rod, or this one here, the shift rod runs right through here. So you have to unbolt the shifter inside the bus, and then there's a set screw on the shift rod, and the shift rod comes in two pieces in the front. You take that apart, and you can access this grub screw, and that screw is what holds all of the torsion leaves in the beam. These are the grub screws that I was referring to that locate into the torsion leaves. So, alright guys, that's where we're at. I got to glue some valve cover gaskets on and get that capped up. And I'm going to look at the points and the cap and stuff on that. And I think the motor's pretty much done, ready to go back in. We installed our release bearing. We have to change the fuel line under there. One of the brake hoses was definitely bad on the driver's side. No fluid transfer through the hose at all. And the last thing I need to check in the back here is the fuel pressure gauge. So we'll get that done, and we'll be on our way to knocking the back out. Somebody asked me a few questions yesterday on the video about what type of grease to use in the CV boots, and you want to use a CV grease. It's high impact grease made specially for the CV joints, and this is how I get the kits. You can go to your parts store and just buy the grease, or you can replace the boots. Axle boots sort of have a lifespan, so if you have an older car and it looks like the boots have never been replaced, it might be a good idea to go ahead and make the investment. Change the boot out. Now these boot kits have come in various quality and conditions. This is a better brand here. So normally my parts store has good quality parts, and I never have an issue with what they sell me. And that's why I like dealing with them. And if I do have an issue, I can take the part back and they stand behind it. So here's our boot assembly. This boot has the proper construction on it. I've gotten boots in the past that didn't have these reliefs here, and you couldn't run the hardware. Volkswagen has like a little plate that retains the two bolts, and it spreads the load out on this. And some of them have a collar all the way around, and you can't use the plate. These you can. Always inspect the hardware and make sure the hardware's a decent quality. That's hard to do. I mean, the best you can do is give it a visual and make note of how it tightens down. I have had these fail on my bus, and I replaced everything on my bus when I did it. Everything's new, from the front bumper to the back bumper. Anything that bolted to the chassis I replaced. And I was coming back from the beach not too long ago, and I had one of these break, and it broke all the bolts off, sheared them. I mean, they'd obviously come loose, I didn't feel it, and then the bolt finally broke. And I was using a different brand boots, and the boot also has failed too. I only put 40,000 miles on my bus since I put it back on the road, and the boot failed within that 40,000 miles, and the bolt broke. So this is a different brand, and the bolts look a little nicer quality. The bolts that I originally got were not anodized. They were just a steel bolt, and it's good to see a finish on the bolt, because these are in a harsh condition under the car, and if the hardware is not coated, it's gonna rust. Here's the grease that comes with the boot. Like I said, if you don't want to buy a kit, you can get a CV grease. It's designed to work in a CV joint. Wheel bearing grease probably wouldn't be your best choice. I'm sure if you go to the parts store, you'll find a container of grease that is designated for CV joints. That's what you probably want to use. So this is usually a moly grease, which is a black grease that goes in these joints. You'll get the spacer in here. This goes on the axle first to preload the joint. I got a new clamp for the top. You'll get a brand new snap ring, and then you get all your new bolts. So that's the answer on the grease in the CV joints. The other question I got was on spark plugs. You got a guy that's watching my channel, and he has a fouling issue with spark plugs, and unfortunately that's more than likely the quality of the plug. And there's a couple issues with spark plugs that I can show you. One is there's a couple different types of plugs. This is an old Bosch plug here. It's white, and it'll have green is the band color. And these are the platinum plugs that a lot of people like to sell. These are mostly found at discount auto parts, you know, Advanced, something like that. You know, most Volkswagen shops don't sell the platinum. The plug that you get now, of course I won't have one. They are blue and white. They say Bosch on them, but I don't believe it's a Bosch plug. I'm not really sure where they're made or manufactured. Like I said, these are super old green, super Bosch. You know, if you could still get these, the world would be a better place, but I don't think you can. But one of the things that's happened with spark plugs is the quality of the plug is much crappier. The alcohol in our fuel is harder to maintain a good spark, and the ignition system is sort of lacking for that fuel. However, you can do a couple things. One thing is you always just want to use a drop of oil on these plugs on the threads. I've seen these before where I take them out and they have anti-seize caped all in the threads, or some other kind of compound, and you never want to do that on a spark plug. And on an air-cooled vehicle it's more sensitive, I think. But when you coat the threads on a spark plug with any kind of anti-seize or grease or anything like that, it can affect the temperature or the heat range of the plug, the way the heat is transferred through the combustion chamber into the plug. So a drop of oil is a good idea rather than an anti-seize. The other thing to remember is if you're running an 09 distributor, it retards the number 3 cylinder 2 degrees. So if you are in the game of running your timing super low, I know that the 15, 20, I guess it's been about 30 years now I've been working on Volkswagens, I've always found 32 degrees of timing to be the magical spot. I like to match my plug gap with whatever timing I'm running, and I've read several articles in Hot VW where they tell you if you run 32 degrees timing that you'll blow your motor up. And they recommend as low as 28, 26 degrees for an aspirated motor on the street. This takes a lot of the performance out of the car and also generates a lot of heat from the timing being retarded. And the solution is to run the proper fuel, which would be high test, and the proper timing is also a good idea. This is why I like to reduce the compression ratio in the motor, and it opens your tuning window up. A lot of guys, you know, they don't think about compression. They machine the head, they put the motor together, and they're running around with 10.5 to 1 compression on an air-cooled motor, and that will never work. An American car, there's a lot of water around the spark plug, and it, you know, it cushions the detonation and suppresses it. And we don't have that luxury with an air-cooled motor. Our combustion temperatures are much higher, and the spark plug has to work a lot harder. So the one solution if you're going to run a 09 distributor is to get a hotter coil. MSD is a really good investment. A 6AL is good for the street, and if you install that on your Volkswagen, you'll notice the mileage increase for sure, and definitely an increase in power, and the life of the spark plugs will increase tremendously. The only problem with running the hotter spark is it's hard to read your plug. You know, if you're one of the guys that like to read your plug and get a jet reading that way, it can be difficult to get a good jet reading with an MSD because it burns the spark so much more efficient. The plug hardly ever loads up. So there's the spark plug question answered, and the CV grease, and try to answer your questions as I go and see them, and some of them, you know, take longer explanation than others, so it's hard to reply in a question or an answer. I'd rather just make a video, especially being dyslexic. So anyway, that's where we're at there. Let me shut this off, go cool off for a little bit because it's about 1,000,000 degrees already today. Got the crickets cricketing. Another cloud in the sky, unless you're counting the contrail. But beautiful day. The kids are going to Disney this weekend. Gonna go to Spring Cove tonight in Jacksonville with Noel. We're gonna make another hit on the Pro Mod car and see, we got the oil leaks fixed and stuff. We built a new breather box, some valve covers, and some cool stuff. And we're getting ready for drag night. Somebody asked me what strip that was at. There you go, Orangeburg drag strip is where it's at in South Carolina. There's a picture of my car from 2013. We went up there. But been sort of helping Noel with his car, and my car's been sitting in here. I got to do some paint work, and I need a new truck and a trailer to pull it to the races with, so just hanging for now and spectating. So we'll be there next weekend, and like tonight we'll be in Spring Cove in Jacksonville. Really nice little track, and yeah, so that should be a good time. Better time than last week. We had a really good time other than oiling the track down. I don't think we ever have a bad time. So anyway, there goes the mailman, Robert. I'm gonna get the mail. I gotta cut the grass where my wife gets pissed off. It's getting about knee high. I usually try to get it when it gets to the knee. But yeah, so I need to work on my bus. I don't know, let some of you guys know I had some vandalism on the paintwork, and then somebody ran into it. So I ended up having to strip these two panels off, and I'm out of pins for my stud gun. But it's got a big crease right here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, somebody did that for me in a parking lot, and luckily it was already messed up. But I mixed some paint up. I'm just going to paint the whole side of it probably. And this thing flew off the other day and it got bent up, and yeah, it just needs to be touched up. But it still drives really good, still having fun with it. And I just stripped the panel and threw some epoxy on there and been driving it. People still flock around it, believe it or not. But I told Andrew I was thinking about taking it to Mako and have it painted white. Figured people would look at it less. But I figured people would look at it less with a primer, and they don't. So let's see what we got today. Oh, a lot of bills. That's what it looks like. Yeah, bills. More bills. More bills. More bills. More doctor bills. More bills. Man, can't some guys send me something? Log cabin. Log cabins. I'm waiting for log cabin plans. I'm thinking about buying a new house. Well, a different house. I don't know about new, but out in the country. I don't know. Might move. Might just stay here. I don't know yet. But we looked at a couple of places, and one place we really liked fell through. It was a big log cabin on 20 acres. And you wouldn't think people would want to live out in the country, but apparently they do. So the country is good for me because I work at home and on the internet, so I really don't need to go into the big city. And it just gets too complicated. I'm much better at home in the woods than I am in the city. So anyway, let me shut this off because I'm babbling and rabbling. If you guys were in the subscriber giveaway contest, that was yesterday. Go look at that video, see if your name was called. Put your information on Andrea's website so we can measure or send out your prize there. Measure your prize. Send your prize out to you. And get that going. I have one guy that won a hubcap. Ed, I'm going to repaint a hubcap. I'm painting a special hubcap for Ed, so his might go out a day later. Meow, meow, meow. All right, I gotta deal with this cat. She's gonna have kittens. She's in labor. Let me go. Hey, baby girl.